dealers. Today, I'm having a fantastic pop-up show because you know what happens sometimes when you get the best, most interesting people in the world, you have to work around their schedules. And today is no different. My good friend, Annette Sykora, is on our show today. So Annette is a car dealer. She is a dealer principal. In fact, she's a partner at Smith South Plains Ford Lincoln down in Lubbock. Even more interesting, she is the past chairwoman of the National Automobile Dealers Association. And I might add, the only chairwoman ever to have sat in that position, the only woman, which makes me so proud of her. She continues to be a lifetime member of the board, and then she serves on the foundation board of NADA. On top of that, she's pretty darn busy running her car dealerships. So Annette, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lisa.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here today.
Gosh, I was just tired talking about all the things that you do.
You're the one that make me tired. I watch all your travels, and I'm glad I'm not traveling as much these days.
I know. I mean, but you know, you and I have kind of always had the same heart when it comes to promoting the mission for not only women in the automotive industry, but just for the automotive industry itself.
A very dynamic business and a lot of fun and a lot of great people. I think that's what I love the most.
I think so too. Well, I want you to tell all of our viewers about your family. I mean, the Sykoras, well, actually the Smiths, this is a legacy business and it started with your grandfather. So tell us about your grandfather.
Well, truly a family business. My grandfather worked for Ford Motor Company for 18 years. He was in the Dallas district then. And then he decided to move his family to Slayton, Texas in the early 50s. Bought into a dealership and quickly bought him out. And my grandfather was one of those larger than life people. And toward late in his career, he would walk in the dealership and say, well, you know, Steve doubled my pay today, but double or nothing, still nothing. But he was great. And, you know, I can remember a lot of advice he gave me early on because he said, you know, you can't do everything and you're not going to be perfect. You have to learn enough to know whether someone's telling you the truth or not. And then you just have to be right more than you're wrong.
Okay, so then from there, it looks like your father took over because you were you're at Texas Tech University thinking about going in the car business or no?
Well, I went into the car business pretty quickly with my dad. I told my dad that, you know, I wanted to come in and buy the business, and after a big hearty belly laugh, and then he went home and told my mom and said, I don't know why I do that. She never finished piano lessons. I didn't like piano. I was no good at piano. So then I joined my dad in the business, and he told me, he says, I'm not a good teacher, which I might disagree with now, because when I look back and I think about the ways he allowed me to learn, I think he was very wise. He pretty much said, you know, you can open any drawer, touch anything you want to touch, but if you touch it, it's yours and you're responsible. You need to understand that. And he really let me do that. He let me learn. He let me take on big projects. He also had another rule, and I implement this rule at our store because we always want ideas. But the rule with my dad is if I had an idea, I had to present it to him in writing. And I had to tell him who all it was going to be involved, what it was going to cost, and what the impact was going to be. I can't tell you how many times they got wadded up well before they ever got presented to them.
So, so do you find that that's a good piece of business advice for people? Because it's so easy to get this like big idea in our head and we think, yeah, let's go. But when you actually have to take that and commit it to paper and an action plan and an ROI tied to it, sometimes that big idea is not so great. Do you agree? Right.
Or it can maybe go a different direction, but a lot of times you find out it's not going to be worth it. Not worth upsetting the apple cart. And I think that was the thing my dad didn't want as a young person coming into the business. He didn't want me to just swing the personnel with every big new idea, all of a sudden swinging them in different directions, because that's, as you know, from being in that's very disruptive.
Yes. But I was actually very disruptive. Every time I would come back from a major convention or from something I spoke out. I'm like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. And they'd be like, oh my God, please do not let her ever go to another conference again.
Yes.
I'm one of those people. I get really excited. So tell us about all the different positions that you've held in the automotive industry.
Well, I started as a title clerk. I really started as a file clerk when I was in junior high, filing and sitting at the cashier desk and answering the telephone. So you learn a lot from those positions. And,
sure you do.
Really learn you learn what everyone does and how important each position is, and how important keeping your files straight are. From there, I went into the F&I department, and at that time, it was in the early 80s, and there'd never been a woman on the floor, never going to be a woman on the floor, didn't need a woman on the floor. Those were all the things that I heard, and there I was, young and a woman.
Yes.
And but I had a great sales manager, really great sales manager, who took me under his wing and was very supportive. I remember one time he was turning a customer over to me and had just introduced me, and this customer turned back to him and he said, I thought you were taking me to see a manager.
Oh, I have never even, all my years, I've never heard someone say a manager.
And my sales manager turned to him and he says, this is one of the finest managers you're ever going to sit with, and she's going to take really good care of you. So you just sit right down there and listen.
Good.
And so he was very supportive, and I encountered a lot of support early on. And I think sometimes as women, we have to realize how much support is out there. There is a lot of support out there, because sometimes it can be really easy to focus on the hurdles instead of on the support.
Right.
And I had a lot of support.
Agreed. So from F&I, what did you do from there?
From F&I, then I learned about the NADA Dealer Academy.
Ah.
And I was getting really frustrated at my dad at that time, because I really didn't know how to move on to the next level. And I found the academy. And so I presented a proposal to him. That one passed when I put all of that in writing and presented it to him. And then I started the NADA Dealer Academy. And before I was done, I wrote a press release announcing myself the general manager of the store, responsible for all day-to-day decisions and operations, and I put it on his desk.
I love it. So you went to your dad, you said, I'm going to further my education. I'm going to go to the NADA Academy. And then once you graduated, which for those of you out there, that's the National Automobile Dealers Association, most prestigious academy that you can graduate from. And it prepares general managers and future dealer principals for their role. So you graduated, then you let him know what your new role was going to be, and even did the press release.
I did. I put the press release on his desk. He brought it to me. He said, what is this? And I said, I just need your signature. He signed it, and I put it in every publication. And then, as they say, the rest is history.
Well, and the rest is history for those of you who just tuned in, that Annette is the only woman that has ever held the position of chairwoman of the National Automobile Dealers Association. I mean, what an honor, because I believe it was started in, what, 1917?
I think that's right. Yes. Yeah.
So between 1917 and the year 2018, so, yeah, duh, hello, because in fact, last NADA was
100 years last year.
Like, I'm like, okay, I got to wake up here. Yeah, and so in 100 years, there was one woman sitting at the helm, and it was you. I mean, what an honor. What made you decide to go for it?
Well, there were a number of things throughout my career. Because I did receive a lot of support. A lot of the local dealers were very supportive very early on in my career. I would call them with all kinds of questions, pay plan questions, inventory questions, and they were all so very gracious to me as far as sharing their knowledge. And then I began to get involved on committees. And as you know, from being a woman in automotive, I got asked to be on a lot of committees. And as I would begin to serve, I would realize very quickly, I'm the token, I'm the diversity factor. But I also knew that might have been what brought me to the seat, but that wasn't going to keep my seat. And as long as I had a seat, I wanted to contribute. And so I always felt like very quickly on, I turned that position from one that was not just a token position, but one where I could really contribute. And then I was asked, more and more I was asked to contribute because I was a contributor. Right. And I think that's where we take gender or race or, ethnicity out of the equation when we're a contributor.
Right. And it isn't that the men don't contribute. Now, of course, I never sat as high as you did, but I was on the National Dealer Council for FCA, and I was the only woman for 4.5 years.
Right.
And, and I don't know about you, but, for the first year, I was appointed. And for the first year, I didn't say anything because I was in awe of the room, and because it was the biggest and the brightest, best dealers in the country, the most successful. I think I was the only one that actually flew in on Delta. The rest flew in on their jets, right? And then one day, the head of the Fiat brand at the time, Tim Kaniskis, sent me a text across the table, and he said, "It's time for you to speak up. It's time for you to say something." And boy, the minute that he told me that, I never shut up for 3.5 more years. But even for people like us, Annette, I mean, where we earned our spot at the table. I earned the spot because I was the #1 dealer in the country, and we broke the sales record. But even then, did you ever find it intimidating knowing that all eyes were on you? People had, I just have to believe that they had a different expectation of us than they did our male counterparts. Not in a bad way. It's just that we stood out in the room.
And I guess I have to thank both of my grandfathers. Both my grandfathers were entrepreneurial men, and from a very early age, they spoke to me on a level that was very equal. And there were a lot of expectations they made of me, but they never highlighted my gender as being a factor of any kind. And so I didn't feel that same way, really. When I went on the board, I was the first female elected to a traditional seat. There's 2 seats on the NADA board that are specifically for women representing women. And I was the first woman elected to a traditional seat. And so I went in just, I'm here as a car dealer.
Right.
Not necessarily as a woman.
And it's a very big honor for you because who put you on that board were your fellow car dealers.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so I had built a network, and I felt very comfortable there. And then what I did is we get a little book that has everybody listed, and I would study that book because I wanted to be able to walk into that room of 63 dealers, and like you say, a lot of strong personalities.
Yes.
But I wanted to know who they were, where they were from, and be able to speak to them. And after a couple of years, one of the men commented to me and said, some of the other women don't, like, they just come in, they take their seat. And I always tried to sit with someone new to just learn who everyone was. And I think that ultimately contributed to a few years later when I decided to seek the seat of vice chairman, which leads into the chairmanship, because I had paid my dues on committees. I'd sat elbow to elbow with them. And when I made my campaign speech, I said, I am a woman. I can't change that. Don't want to change that. But I'm here to be a car dealer, to help with NAD as the voice of the dealer. And I think I can help further that voice.
And you did. You were a wonderful chairwoman. I'm going to call you a chairwoman. I don't know if it's supposed to be chairperson but you're not a chairman. You were the chairwoman. And what an honor. And then from there, you are now on the board of the NADA Foundation. And what an amazing, that foundation made me very proud to be a car dealer because you guys came in when our employees were in trouble, natural disasters, or, pretty much natural disasters is what I can think of off the top of my head. And, the dealers could apply to the foundation, and you guys would give relief and aid and money faster than, their insurance companies could give money.
Right.
Tell us about the foundation.
Yeah, the NADA Foundation essentially has like three different prongs. We have some committed funds, and one of the things we do, and we do it every year at the NADA show in conjunction with Odessa, but we support the Canine for Companions for Independence, and we help give dogs to a wounded warrior or a child that needs
I love that.
help with that. And that's one of the things. It's that fund was started in honor of our past president, Frank McCarthy, after he passed. So we have some endowed funds like that. There's a way that dealers can use the foundation kind of as their own foundation. They can become an ambassador by making a contribution to the foundation. Then every 3 years, they're able to give a grant to a local charity of their choice.
See, I did not know that. That's wonderful.
It is. And then there is the Emergency Relief Fund. And the Emergency Relief Fund is there for dealership employees who suffer in some sort of natural disaster. And their dealer principal and their state association can sign their grant, and they can then get some money to help them immediately with food or diapers or whatever their most immediate
losing
need
everything, right?
Yes.
And in fact, I was in Houston, was it yesterday or day before yesterday with a dealer, and they were affected by Harvey. And she said that, one of her employees literally came to work with his pajama bottoms on. Like, he had lost everything, but he knew he needed to at least check in at work, And so it's so devastating. And, and many dealers around the country, we think of car dealers as these huge, grandiose organizations, but 70% of the dealers around the country, isn't the number net? Don't they sell like 70 new cars or less, or 50 new cars or less? It's pretty small.
Right.
I mean, they're basically small businesses, supporting local communities. And so what I love is that when they're in trouble, when their employees are in trouble, that the foundation can come in and support those dealers. Because one thing I was always proud about being a car dealer is that I knew that we gave back to our local community. When someone came into me and they needed money, the Girl Scouts or the Stiletto Stampede or the American Heart, whatever it was, we were there to raise money, to write checks, and to bring awareness. But sometimes, especially the smaller dealers, they need help.
Right. Well, what we notice too, when these disasters occur, they occur in a city, and there is a lot of need in that city. And the employees of a dealership, like you said, they get to work because they also know that their customers are going to need them. And they take that very seriously.
They do.
And they get to work, even though they have hardships of their own. And so that's been so rewarding to be able to help them because they're just pouring their heart out for their dealer, for their customers, for their community. And then the foundation can help them through their hardship.
No, I love that. So you were telling me earlier about some exciting initiatives that the foundation is working on. Can you talk about them?
Yes, we are. In fact, we issued a press release. The foundation launches a major workforce initiative. So just to back up a little bit, across the nation in franchise dealers, we employ over 1.1 million people across the country.
Oh, I just got chills. Now we are talking new car franchise dealers, which is about 17,500.
Yeah, about that
ish. Okay, and then about 21,000 independent dealers were the last numbers I've seen.
And that's about 69 employees per dealership.
Okay.
So 1.1 million people that we employ. And I was looking just at our stats in Texas at what an average weekly earning is. It's almost $1,200. Weekly.
Which is way over the median incomes in any of our towns.
Exactly.
Yes.
But what I feel like is that's kind of a best kept secret.
It is a best kept secret.
Great jobs that are so rewarding, challenging, fun, and well paying. And yet, if someone wants to enter our business, our industry, it's very difficult. There's very fragmented approach to if someone said, I want to be an auto tech, or I want to be a parts counter, or I'd like to work accounting in a car dealership. It's very difficult if they Google that to find a comprehensive pathway for them to join our industry. And so that's what we hope to solve. with our workforce initiative.
So how would you go about solving that? Now, I know, techs are an issue, and they're an issue in every state. There are not enough techs. I mean, I'm a firm believer, I don't know how many young people graduate from college and they don't have jobs. I believe many of them should have gone to trade school, because then they would be in a six-figure job as a tech in the automotive industry. So anyone out there watching, if you've got a kid who's just kind of floundering out there but has got some technical ability, send them to trade school. It's a six-figure job.
Right. Almost a third of that 1 million are technicians. And those are really well-paying jobs.
But massive shortage. I mean, you can write your own ticket.
Shortage. There are scholarships that go unclaimed. There is a very fragmented approach. Manufacturers, they each have their own technician training. And then there's high schools and junior colleges that have automotive training programs. But if somebody in my zip code just says, what would it take to be an auto tech and what are my resources, they're just going to kind of get solutions that are all over the board. And NADA wants to take those and put them in, organize them and put them in a way where, somebody could drill down in and they could see what all the resources are, what all their choices are. So then it's not just which manufacturer paid the most on Google this month to get that technician, but this way they can make a really good decision with all of the information.
So do you think NADA, will part of your strategy be to, get that information into the high schools? Because that's really where it starts. And like I said, with the high unemployment rate of today's college graduates, it's just disappointing to me that more of them don't go to trade school, or that there's not more trade school programs for auto mechanics. In Texas even, there's not that many.
Right. I think that what's needed is some coordinated effort, bringing all the parties together. And I think that's where NADA, that's our job. One voice, the voice of the dealer, is to look at that on a big picture basis and bring all the parties together and deliver a comprehensive message to students, to counselors, to parents, because there's a lot of misconception.
Right.
A lot of misconception about our business.
Well, and a lot of people think, oh, trade school. Well, it's like, oh, trade school, you're going to walk out with a six-figure job and work as long as you want to, anywhere you want to. A college degree in marketing, you may or may not be, you may or may not be living in the basement. And so I think the education process too, Annette, is for the parents, so that they realize, because they think, oh God, I don't want my kid to be a mechanic. Well, they're no longer mechanics. They're working on the most technologically advanced machines in the world. And it's a fine education, and it's even a better career, You
want to, that's science, that's math.
It is. It is.
These, I always say, those are the smartest people in my store. Are my techs.
Oh, absolutely. And just their problem solving skills, right? Yes. And it's just interesting, but people just don't realize the massive amount of education because of the types of cars that we build nowadays. All right. So, enough of that. Tell us about your family, because I don't know who puts up more pictures of their grandkids, me or you.
I know. Yeah, we run a close race on that one.
Yes.
No, over the last couple of years, our family has just expanded. So our oldest grandchild, Morgan, and Fisher is 2. Morgan's 3, Fisher's 2. Clara is almost 1. She'll be 1 in August. And then we're expecting 1 more in September, Collins. So we'll have 2 little grandsons and 2 granddaughters.
Oh.
And they are so much fun. And then what's making that even more fun is that we've had 3 of our kids and our son-in-law join our business.
Really? Okay. Well, tell us about your 3 kids and your son-in-law. What are they doing?
So our son-in-law is our service manager right now. He did a stint in the sales manager office. His wife is our marketing director. She's actually been with us the longest. You want to talk about somebody that graduated with an advertising degree and couldn't find, she could find plenty of jobs, but nobody
it's not as lucrative as the auto industry.
Exactly.
Right.
And she already knew our business because she had grown up in it, and she is great at telling our story. So, and she is overseeing our BDC now. So it's just, we feel really blessed to have her here. And then Holden graduated tech in December, Texas Tech, and he is a sales manager here. And he's one I have to say a lot now. Remember, you need to bring that to me in writing. But
so basically he is his mother's son. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I didn't even birth him. He's one of my blendeds. And then our youngest is attending our South Plains College here and about to go to Texas Tech this fall. And he is working in the parts department. And what's significant about that is we started Ryan in the parts department, and his grandfather, Ed Sykora, started in the parts department. You would ask me about my in-laws store there in West.
Yes.
Ed started in parts. My dad started in parts. Patrick, my husband, started in parts. And so we said, Ryan, you're starting in parts.
You're starting in parts. So now, Patrick, your husband?
Yes.
Now, does he work there in the store with you too?
He is my partner, and he oversees most of our used car acquisition and
which is a big job.
Yes.
Very important job. That's where you can win it or lose it, is in that used car department. Well, that is that. So what is it like for you? I mean, I think about someone like you who is so entrenched in the automotive industry, so, such a leader, such a thought leader, in all the work you do, for NADA. And what does it feel like when you walk in and your whole family's there? Like the legacy that you have built and that your family has built, not just you, but your whole family has built for the automotive industry.
Well, I think, having the kids here has really renewed my passion. It's given me the strength to embrace all the new technology, because this is the future. It is how my kids will be successful.
Right.
And so it has helped me to refine my skills and just rejuvenated me to help them get to a point where I can spend more time with their kids.
That's right. It's like, okay, you're going to work on Saturday. I'm going to take the grandkids. Got it?
Exactly right.
You know what, though? They're probably like, okay, that works for me, because going to work's not a bad thing as long as, you can get the kids taken care of.
Yes.
So you've done this since, neither one of us are over 30. So let's just say you've done this for a little amount of time. What do you see the biggest challenge for the automotive industry in the next couple of years?
Lisa, I do think it's attracting the right skill set of person. Mm-hmm. I think that the technology has changed what kind of person we're needing to attract into the business. And I think dealers are going to have to really use a lot of recruitment tools to get the right people in.
Because technology is a deal. You've almost got to have a PhD in technology to run your CRM.
Yes. So that's one of the biggest changes, I think. But what I absolutely love is it will always be a people business.
Right.
And that's why I love serving my fellow dealer, is because I've had that opportunity to meet a lot of dealers, to be in a lot of stores, and the heart they have for their own community, the heart they have for their employees.
Right.
That's really what I love about our business.
Yeah. And I'll say, of all the dealers I've known my whole life, and I know lots of them, hundreds of them, I have never not known one who has not been passionate about serving their community.
Exactly.
I think that's part of why you go into it. I think that's part of why you put your name up on a sign in your hometown, right? It's like, you fundamentally want to do the right thing because you're going to see them at the grocery store.
Yeah, I think most live by that. To whom much is given, much is expected.
Yes, I would agree with that 100%. So with all of that being said, what is your opinion as to why car dealers have such a bad rap? I told you I was going to throw you a few curveballs, friend or no friend.
Right. I've always heard that too, lawyers get a bad rap, politicians get a bad rap, but you probably love your own lawyer.
Yes.
And your own politician. And so sometimes I think it's just somebody to pick on. So sometimes I think we gotta realize and just have a little thick skin on that, because, we have to know, we know what we do. We know what we do in our communities. We know what kind of service we provide to our customers, the fact that we'll get up in the middle of the night and go get somebody off the side of the road if they need us to, without hesitation.
Right.
And
because it's just, I mean, like, it's what we do. And I think that that's why we got into this business, was to serve.
yes,
I used to tell my people all the time, we're not in the car business, people. We're in the people business. And, you know, you have to love people, because a lot of times they're not going to love us back, and you're going to want to punch them in the face. And you just have to kind of go back to, I love people. That's why I do this.
yes. I mean, we do. We love people, and you know, it is like taking an oath to serve, because when you are providing for transportation needs in a community, you know, it's that man's livelihood. If it's that plumber, that's just an extension of his business. If it's the mom taking the kids to school every day, those are everyday life priorities for them, and we get to be part of that. And I like that fact.
So, you know, talking about technology, now it's probably not as prevalent in your town, but you know, I like what you said about serving transportation needs. What I know, especially in the bigger cities, and I participated in it 4 years ago, I launched the first subscription-based car program, because it, you know, and it was a weekly program. I was partnered with Cox Automotive on it, and it was called Flex Drive. And they needed some poor sucker to, you know, throw it out there and see if it works. And I got to store about 200 cars for them, but it was on an app, and Uber drivers were pretty much our biggest customers. And it was great for them, right? Because they could come in on the first week if they needed a small car, but if South by was there the next week, they could get a Suburban. And anyways, it was really great. But what I've seen from when I launched the first one 4 years ago to today, and, you know, with Cadillac, the book, and Audi, and I interviewed Volvo at the Chicago Auto Show, and, you know, it's coming like a freight train. And, you know, one of the VPs of Volvo said something pretty interesting. He said, you know, how we see it is that you guys are not going to be car dealers in the future. You're going to be transportation specialists. And that means you're going to have this bucket, you might sell them something. This bucket, you might lease them something. And this bucket, you might just handle the subscription delivery for the factory. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, one of the great men who is, I consider a mentor of mine, Sam Pack, I heard him express this really recently, and I thought he was spot on when he said, you know, it's going to be a menu approach.
Yes.
A menu-based approach. And and that is, I think that's very, very correct. And in a town like mine, in Levelland, Texas, where it's miles and miles between anything, and most of our customers are farmers or ranchers or working in the oil field, subscription doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're still going to have the menu item where it's more traditional. And then we are going to have some subscription and some alternative autonomous as that begins to make sense. It'll take a while to make sense in my neck of the woods, but
yeah, like, you know, obviously I would think that you're probably, you know, I mean, what I know about the F-150, I just did a commercial spot for them. But I know that it's the best-selling truck of all times.
That's right. It is.
Yes. So I mean, I imagine
40-something years running.
Yes. It's like nobody, and believe me, you know, we tried our darndest at FCA with Ram to try to take out that Ford truck. Chevy, yeah, probably, but not Ford. I mean, what do you think the staying power of the Ford brand is? Why is it so important to America?
You know, where I sell Ford trucks, I see the use and abuse when they're running over some really rough country, and people sometimes probably out there. Just, who knows? And they really hold up. They hold up well, and I think that Ford has a legacy of putting a lot of quality in their trucks, and built Ford tough is not just a slogan, because we see that. We see the difference.
You remember when I saw you in Detroit at the Automotive News Awards, and so I was sitting down there, and I was sitting next to Elena Ford, and it took like 3.5 hours to get through all of us, right? So Elena and I were just da 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 da, and I'm like, and I'd met her one other time, and I'm like, so what's it like being Henry Ford's granddaughter? She's like, you can't even imagine. She's like, you know, the legacy, everything is so big. She said, but honestly, you know, I wouldn't do anything any different. Anyways, I just loved her. She was so sweet. And she's like, oh, well, you know, tell me about those Fiats. You know, I mean, she just was like, oh, I drove one in Italy. And I'm thinking, I'm talking to Henry Ford's granddaughter for 3.5 hours because we're stuck. They didn't even give us any wine sitting down there. And so for 3.5 hours, we're stuck. And she's, talking about, driving a Fiat in Italy. I just thought she was the most kind and gracious person, just, because of who she is,
Right. Well, her kids and my kids are about the same ages. And so every year we see each other a couple of times a year, it seems like. So we're always catching up on where are your kids and where are my kids and what are we doing? And so she doesn't have any grandkids yet, though.
Oh, she doesn't. Yeah, I don't think she looks old enough to have grandkids. But so how many vehicles a month are you selling?
We're selling about 80 new and used.
That's great. So it's a very nice, manageable business where you actually get to have a life.
Yes.
So in 5 years, are you looking to, sell 180? Are you, because there's so many people now, my good friend, Brian Benstock, I don't know if you know him or not, Paragon.
Yes,
Honda.
I've met Brian.
Yes. And once you meet him, you never, ever forget him. Right.
Right.
But, he's of the opinion that Paragon sits in Queens, but that's just because they sit in Queens. They've got all the fancy technology and they're moving cars everywhere and they ran Manhattan out of business. And so, do you have that kind of grandiose? Like, do you think, okay, I'm sitting here in Levelland, but now I want to go grab into Lubbock or everywhere else, or, do you have those visions?
We sell into Lubbock because we've been here over 60 years. And so we have a legacy here. And no, that's not what we're trying to do. We try to take really good care of our market. Service, our parts and service business is huge. And we concentrate on taking care of our service customers, and that's what keeps the
doors open.
It does, and keeps our loyal customers, because that's a real competitive advantage for us. So no, we're not trying to get business from elsewhere in the country. We do business other places in the country, but
sure,
but not on purpose.
Not on purpose. People just hear about you. They find you. Somebody
you.
on this show might need a new Ford, right? Somebody's watching. We'll have thousands.
We'll certainly take care of them.
That's right, and I know that you will. So I have to throw this at you. I know that you've really made a point all the years I've known you to say, I'm a car dealer. It's not a man thing. It's not a woman thing. And you're, you just, that's been your stance. And if I'm wrong, whereas, I would go out very heavily in the women in the automotive space and really focus on that. But so I'm going to ask you, as one of the top ranking women dealers in the country, where do you see, why do you think that there are not more women in the retail side of the automotive business? There, I did it to you live. I've done it to you privately, but I just did it to you live.
I think there's misconceptions. I think, for one, we haven't told a good story of what is available for women, the kind of money and experience that they can have in the business, because there's a lot of female real estate agents. Well, they
Yes.
work harder than many of our sales consultants in the automotive do. So we haven't told the compelling story. I think in a few instances, we still have some cobwebs to brush off, and some cultures to evolve, so that the climate is friendlier and more accepting of women. I think that's a two-sided approach. It comes from the woman themselves and from the men and that they're going to work around.
Yeah, and and the things I've heard over the years, though, Annette, yes, is it culture? Of course, we hear that, but you know what I hear more than anything? It's the hours. I was in the car business the first time for 10 years, 10 or 11, I think, and then I started having kids, and it was like, I can't do this. I don't want to miss all my kids' soccer games, and
Right.
Have a nanny pick up my kids at school at 5:30 from daycare and stay with them till 9 o'clock at night. So, so I left because I had to, and I came back because I wanted to, but I came back when my kids were in college, and I didn't feel like I was gypping my life or their life. And probably at a smaller store, country, like yours, that's probably more manageable, but what do we do? I mean, to me, over any other thing you talked about, that's the number one issue for women that I hear. It's
right.
The hours.
Well, we have 24% of our workforce is female. And we really work to keep it at that and increase that. And we have a very harmonious workplace, which we're very proud of as well. Because just like you said, I really try not to focus on it, and I encourage all of my employees to do the same. I think all of us, anybody that comes to work just wants to be receive respect and give respect. So we work hard on that. But I think there's an entry point for women now with the BDC. I think it's a great position for women.
Which is the Business Development Center, for those of you who are watching,
Yes.
not in the automotive industry.
The Business Development Center, because that department allows for some flexible hours. It allows for someone to learn the business. It's a very customer service oriented position in the dealership, and
it's a very important position in today's world, because the majority of the shoppers at some point are shopping on the internet.
Right, and it's perfect for women because we love to serve and help others, and that position, that it all wraps up about taking care of that customer, helping them to receive service of any kind, whether it's to buy something or to have their vehicle serviced or get a part or just get a question answered. And so it's a great entry point, and then a woman can springboard from there. And if you've proven yourself in a position, then you're going to be allowed to have a little more flexibility.
Right. I have one dealer client that came up with their sales team works 4/10s.
Yeah.
So they have 3 days off. I'm like, okay, that's good. Like, that's really good. So they're putting in the time. And of course, if they've got a customer or something, they can come in, but it's just knowing that you can do that. Right. And so I think part of that's pay plans sometimes. And part of it is, getting rid of that old school mentality that someone's got to work bell to bell. I mean, when I started in 1985, that was expected. I was in Dallas at the #1 domestic store in the country. We were selling 1,200 new cars a month. I was in sales, and it was midnight madness the last 2 weeks of the month. We were literally open till midnight with skylights out there, dragging all the drunk people in to drive Corvettes. That was always interesting. And, but it was, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. You had a day off, but if you took it, that was bad.
Right.
You were there from 9 to 9 and midnight madness. And sometimes you got to come in at 11. I mean, it was just a grind. So, but when we were trained that way, we were conditioned that way. But what I found is that the new younger millennial workers, they're like, no, thank you. I don't think I want to work 14 hours a day. And so, to me, that's probably the biggest hurdle,
I do think it requires some innovative thinking.
Yeah.
And I really think that dealers should take a look at that, because we need the skills. We need the skills of those workers. We need the skills of women in our business. Yeah. I
mean, women influence 85% of all purchases, but then when she walks in, there might be 1 or 2 women on the showroom floor. And then millennials are going to be 65, within 5 years, they're going to be 65% of all car purchasers. So we look at that, and then they come in, and there's nobody like them on the showroom floor. So I've always said the showroom should, it should look like your customer base, right? If your customer base is whatever it may be, from ethnicity, from gender, anything, whatever it may be. I've got another good friend, Chris Martinez, a big Toyota dealer here in Texas, and he has like divisions because he has a lot of Korean customers. He's got Chinese customers. He's got Hispanic customers, and so he's got people to serve those customer bases, from a language standpoint, so important, from a messaging and marketing standpoint, different cultures. And I think that's a progressive thought process.
It's very progressive. And again, we don't tell our story very well, because we wouldn't be thought of the way we are if people knew all those stories.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, that is your job, Mrs. Sykora.
And yours.
National Automobile Dealers Association board for the rest of your life, and the foundation. But really, it's just tightening and messaging those stories. And, I've always tried to tell the story that I think it's the greatest industry in the world. But also, to be an advocate for the female consumers also, because, not every dealer has, I think the dealers pretty much have the heart for the consumer. I think sometimes because they have a hard time finding the right people, that doesn't get messaged down sometimes into the sales organizations, right? Because of the high turnover. Again, much more in a metro and a big store environment than, a tight knit, what I wouldn't have given to have a Chrysler store or something in your town. That would have been fantastic. And from what I heard about your Chrysler store, rumor had it, because you and I had a rep that we liked very much, Brent Foreman, and he said, oh, you've got to see her office. But I think it was her office at the Chrysler store. Is that right, or was I dreaming that?
Yeah, I just have one office.
But did you have an office at the Chrysler store?
No.
Oh, okay.